In the world of customer service, some complaints are so bizarre they should be framed in a museum of insanity. But instead of being laughed off, they get people fired. We're talking about careers ending over the wrong color of jelly bean, a smile being too aggressive, or a pizza obeying the laws of gravity. These are 69 of the dumbest complaints that actually led to a termination letter. 1. His termination papers listed the official cause as a failure to align emotional presentation with brand-neutral standards. The translation? A Seattle barista was fired because a customer thought his smile was too aggressive. HR actually agreed, deciding his persistently good mood was a liability. So yeah, his happiness was literally a fireable offense. 2. A single green jelly bean ended an admin's career. A senior VP complained she failed to pick them out of the office candy jar, calling it a threat to brand consistency. Management launched a full review and agreed this tiny oversight was a critical performance failure. Apparently, one wrong-colored candy is all it takes to get you canned. 3. A terrified Walmart manager fired an elderly greeter after his "Welcome to Walmart" was deemed an aggressive welcome protocol. A single shopper complained it startled her, and the manager, fearing a one-star review, fired him on the spot. He was literally terminated for being too good at the one thing they paid him to do. 4. A pizza driver was fired for what his company called a failure to mitigate gravitational impact. A customer on a steep hill complained their topping slid during the drive. Instead of acknowledging physics, the company wrote him up and terminated his employment. Apparently, gravity is grounds for termination now. 5. A rental car agent was fired for linguistic misalignment. An American tourist from Ohio complained the GPS spoke with a British accent, not American. He claimed the accent was dangerously confusing, and of course, the company sided with the delusion. He was fired for a problem that doesn't even exist. 6. A librarian was dismissed for enforcing an atmosphere of oppressive silence. A parent complained that the quiet was stifling her child's creativity and demanded a more vibrant space. The board actually sided with her and let the librarian go. Her job was to keep the library quiet, and they fired her for it. 7. A cable guy's career ended due to what his company officially termed an olfactory distraction. A customer complained that the smell of his clean laundry was overpowering. Management reviewed the case and decided his freshness was a violation of their scent policy. His only crime was doing his laundry. 8. An IT specialist was let go for exhibiting excessive security adherence. He refused to give a VP a password without proper verification, strictly following the rules. The VP complained he wasn't a team player. His reward for preventing a major data breach was a pink slip. 9. A hotel housekeeper was fired for negligence in solar management. A guest complained the morning sun was hitting his pillow at the wrong angle. Since the manager couldn't reschedule the sunrise, he did the next best thing to appease the guest. She was fired for not being able to control the sun. 10. An employee at a hardware store was terminated for premeditated inventory concealment. A customer was convinced the employee was personally hiding a specific shade of beige paint to ruin his weekend. To avoid a bad Yelp review, the manager fired him for the imaginary conspiracy. The real problem? The customer was insane. 11. A movie theater usher was fired for doing his job with a flashlight. During a tense scene, he guided a latecomer to a seat with a quick, low beam on the floor, as he was trained to do. The customer later complained to management that the brief flash of light artistically compromised his viewing experience. The manager, obsessed with online reviews, agreed and wrote the usher up for a violation of cinematic integrity, firing him for choosing customer safety over uninterrupted movie watching. 12. The sound of productivity literally got an office worker fired. A co-worker in the next cubicle filed a formal HR complaint, claiming her rapid typing was rhythmically aggressive and was a deliberate passive-aggressive attack on his slower work pace. Instead of being laughed out of the room, HR launched an investigation and terminated her for creating an environment of acoustic hostility. Her reward for being the most efficient employee in the department was a cardboard box. 13. An incredibly talented chef brought over from Naples was fired from an Italian restaurant for making food that was too authentic. A customer complained that his lasagna didn't have the cheddar cheese and ketchup-like sauce he was used to from TV dinners. The owner, fearing a bad Yelp review, fired the chef for his culinary non-compliance with guest expectations. He was literally sent packing for refusing to Americanize a centuries-old family recipe. 14. A flight attendant with a 15-year perfect safety record was let go after a passenger complained her pre-flight safety demonstration lacked pizzazz. The passenger, an aspiring actor, felt her delivery was insufficiently theatrical and boring. The airline, in the middle of a bizarre corporate rebranding, sided with him, terminating her for a failure to provide an engaging pre-flight experience. Her job was to save lives, not win a Tony Award. 15. A bank teller, known for her speed and accuracy, was fired for being too thorough. A customer who was depositing a huge disorganized wad of cash complained that she took too long to count it twice. The bank manager, prioritizing speed over security, sided with the impatient customer and terminated her for creating excessive transactional diligence. The bank literally fired its best employee for being too careful with their own money. 16. A veteran mail carrier was terminated after a homeowner complained his handwriting on a "sorry we missed you" slip was intimidatingly perfect. The resident filed a formal complaint, claiming the flawless cursive caused emotional distress via superior penmanship. The Postal Service, in a stunning leap of bureaucratic logic, reviewed the case and fired him. His decades of service ended because his handwriting was just too good. 17. A personal trainer at an exclusive gym was fired after her client complained she was too motivational. The wealthy client stated her constant encouragement was creating an intimidating fitness environment that put too much pressure on him to actually try. The gym's management sided with their high-paying member, firing the trainer for generating unsustainable client performance pressure. Apparently, the goal was to make people feel good, not actually get fit. 18. A country club gardener was dismissed after a member complained that the lawn was unnaturally perfect. The golfer argued that the flawless green of the fairway was so immaculate that it was distracting and generated unnatural lawn uniformity. The club's board actually convened a meeting to discuss the issue. They concluded his work was too good and fired him for making the grounds look better than the members' golf swings. 19. A highly sought-after dog groomer lost her job because she made a client's poodle look too adorable. The owner threw a fit, complaining that after the grooming, her dog was getting more attention than she was at parties. She officially accused the groomer of exceeding the pet's established aesthetic baseline. The salon owner, terrified of losing the wealthy client, fired the groomer for being too skilled at her craft. 20. An accountant was fired by his firm for being too organized. A new manager, whose own work was a mess, complained that the accountant's perfectly formatted and color-coded spreadsheets were creating an unachievable standard of data presentation for the rest of the team. Instead of using his work as a model for improvement, they labeled him a disruptor and fired him for making everyone else look incompetent. 21. A security guard at a modern art museum was fired for looking at the art. A visitor complained that the guard's sustained gaze on a painting made her uncomfortable, as if he were silently judging her interpretation of it. The museum director, wanting to avoid any conflict, terminated the guard for displaying excessive artistic fixation. He lost his job at an art museum for daring to appreciate the art. 22. In a moment of beautiful irony, a fast food worker was fired for making a burger that looked exactly like the one in the advertisement. The customer was so shocked by the perfect-looking burger that he immediately complained, assuming it was some kind of prank. The panicked manager fired the new employee for misleading representation of product reality, because their food was never, ever supposed to actually look that good. 23. A hotel valet, famous among his colleagues for his flawless parking, was fired after a guest complained he parked his luxury car too perfectly. The guest argued that the dead center alignment in the spot felt robotic and unsettling, lacking a human touch. Management actually agreed, terminating the valet for a failure to provide a sufficiently casual parking experience. His precision was officially his downfall. 24. A pharmacist was terminated for what his corporate office called inducing undue patient anxiety through excessive clarity. He took time to carefully explain the potential side effects of medications, believing patients had a right to know. One customer complained that his honesty was scary. Corporate sided with the customer, firing the pharmacist for being too effective at the most important part of his job. 25. A children's librarian was let go after a parent complained that the books she recommended were too engaging. The parent's son had become so obsessed with reading a fantasy series that he was staying up past his bedtime. The formal complaint cited negligent curation of addictive literary content. She was fired from her job for successfully getting a child to fall in love with reading. 26. You'd think a park ranger's jurisdiction ends where the laws of nature begin, but apparently not. A tourist camping in a national park filed a formal grievance because the birds were chirping too loudly at dawn, disrupting his precious sleep. The ranger, a man with 2 decades of service, calmly explained that he couldn't exactly issue citations to the local robins. Management, however, saw it as a customer service failure. He was officially terminated for a failure to curate an optimal visitor auditory experience. He lost his career because he couldn't convince the birds to hit the snooze button. 27. For one teenage grocery store bagger, building the perfect bag was an art form. A solid foundation of cans, a cold wall of frozen goods, fragile items nestled safely on top. This architectural genius was brought to an end by a customer who complained his technique was soulless and predictable. She wanted a more chaotic, free-spirited bag. The store manager, facing the wrath of a single bizarre complaint, fired the kid. His official write-up cited a violation of randomized grocery distribution, which is the most insane reason to fire someone for being good at their job. 28. Every couple wants their wedding photographer to be a ghost, capturing every moment without ever being in the way. One photographer was so good at this, he was fired for it. After the wedding, the couple complained that they barely knew he was there and felt he lacked a directorial presence. His agency, siding with the clients who clearly wanted a movie director instead of a photographer, terminated his contract for insufficient performative engagement during a client event. He was professionally punished for achieving the very perfection his job demanded. 29. The scene was a 5-star restaurant. A wealthy customer, trying to impress his date, loudly proclaimed his $20 bottle of wine was a rare vintage. When he asked the sommelier for confirmation, the expert politely corrected him. The customer, deeply embarrassed, complained to management that the sommelier was arrogant. The restaurant fired the sommelier the next day for creating an atmosphere of unlogical elitism. He was terminated for having a palate and, unfortunately for him, telling the truth. 30. His job was to hang hundreds of feet in the air and wash windows, a task requiring immense focus. His mistake, occasionally glancing inside and making brief, polite eye contact with the office workers. An employee filed a formal complaint with her HR department, claiming his invasive visual presence was breaking her concentration. The corporation threatened to cancel their cleaning contract, so his company fired him immediately to appease them. He lost his livelihood for momentarily acknowledging another human's existence. 31. Do not change a single thing, the client insisted, handing over a blurry, pixelated logo to be printed on a massive banner. The graphic designer, knowing it would look terrible but bound by the client's explicit instructions, did exactly as he was told. When the hideous banner arrived, the client was furious and blamed the designer. The firm fired the designer, citing malicious compliance with client directives. He was fired for listening too well. 32. A mattress salesman had a voice so soothing and a sales pitch so effective that he accidentally hypnotized a customer. The man, testing out a memory foam model, fell into a deep sleep for nearly an hour. Upon waking up, he was so embarrassed that he furiously complained the salesman had induced an unplanned state of unconsciousness, making him late for a meeting. The store fired the salesman, who was apparently too good at demonstrating the primary function of his own product. 33. A city bus driver had a reputation for being the smoothest operator in the fleet. No sudden stops, no jerky acceleration. This talent became his downfall. A passenger, who usually got motion sick, complained that the ride was so incredibly gentle that she forgot she was on a bus and missed her stop by 3 miles. The transit authority reviewed the incident, siding with the passenger, and terminated the driver for a failure to provide adequate kinetic feedback. He was fired for being too good at driving. 34. You can't make this stuff up. A man at a bowling alley complained that the ball return machine sent his ball back with aggressive and taunting velocity. He was so convinced it was a personal attack that he demanded to see the lane mechanic, accusing him of modifying the machine to bully him. The alley manager, rather than explaining basic mechanics, fired the employee for unauthorized modification of lane equipment for customer intimidation. 35. A passionate pet store employee tried to be a hero and ended up unemployed. When a customer tried to buy 3 notoriously aggressive fish species to put in a tiny, unheated bowl, the employee gently explained it would lead to a gruesome fish death match. The customer was offended and complained that the employee was gatekeeping fish ownership. Management sided with the sale, firing the expert for obstructing customer purchases through excessive accuracy. 36. Her name was Siobhan, and that was apparently a fireable offense. A regular customer named Bob complained every single week that he couldn't pronounce her unnecessarily complex name, and that she was doing it on purpose to make him feel inadequate. After months of this nonsense, the coffee shop manager finally caved to Bob's fragile ego. Siobhan was fired for failing to maintain a friction-free customer name-to-name interface. 37. A museum tour guide with a PhD in Renaissance history was fired for contradicting a movie. During a tour, a visitor loudly insisted a historical fact from a Hollywood blockbuster was true. The guide, an actual expert, politely corrected him with primary source evidence. The visitor was humiliated and complained the guide was arrogant. The museum fired the historian for undermining guest confidence with excessive factual data. 38. A gym employee took his job of keeping the weight room tidy very seriously. This bothered a massive bodybuilder who complained that having all the 45-pound plates neatly stacked on the rack disrupted his chaotic workout flow. He claimed he wasted energy looking for his weights now that they were organized. The gym manager, intimidated by the client, fired the employee for implementing an overly structured weight management system. 39. An executive at a corporate campus complained that the trees outside his office window were too leafy. He claimed their lush, healthy foliage cast too much shade on his desk, which he found demotivating and detrimental to his Q3 projections. The landscaping company that serviced the campus immediately fired the arborist responsible for tree health, blaming him for suboptimal light transmission through corporate flora. 40. A brilliant software engineer wrote code that was so clean, efficient, and well-documented that it got him fired after he'd already quit. His replacement at the company complained that the code was too easy to understand, leaving him no room to bill extra hours for deciphering and refactoring. The The company, siding with the new employee's desire to milk the clock, retroactively terminated the first engineer for creating a legacy system that devalues future maintenance hours. 41. The chef at a prestigious culinary school was a master of his craft, but one student's complaint ended his career. The student, who was failing the class, argued that the chef's perfectly executed dishes were setting an unattainable standard for culinary excellence, which was causing him anxiety. The school's administration, prioritizing student feelings over actual education, terminated the chef. His official dismissal was for demoralizing students through superior skill demonstration. He was fired for being too good to teach. 42. A call center employee was renowned for her efficiency, resolving issues in under 2 minutes. This became a problem. The company's billing model was based on customer engagement time, and her speed was costing them money. A manager pulled her aside and told her to drag out her calls. She refused, citing ethics. She was fired for a persistent failure to maximize customer interaction duration. She lost her job for being too helpful, too quickly. 43. An amusement park ride operator was fired after a parent complained he was too enthusiastic about safety checks. The father, impatient to get on the roller coaster, claimed the operator's meticulous double-checking of every single seatbelt and harness was creating unnecessary pre-ride anxiety for the children. Management sided with the impatient dad, firing the operator for over-adherence to non-critical safety protocols. He was fired for being too careful about preventing people from dying. 44. A city street sweeper, who took immense pride in leaving his assigned blocks spotless, was fired because of a complaint from a local artist. The artist claimed that the man's thorough cleaning was removing naturally occurring urban textures and found art objects, like interesting-looking litter and leaves. The city council, in a bizarre nod to the arts community, terminated the sweeper for sanitary overperformance and destruction of potential art installations. 45. A librarian in a small town was beloved by children for her incredibly expressive and dramatic reading style during story hour. This ended when a parent complained her performance was overshadowing the literary merit of the text. The parent, a frustrated actor, argued that her character voices were so good they made the kids less likely to read the books themselves. The library board fired her for creating a narrative dependency. She was fired for making books too exciting. 46. A furniture delivery man was fired for being too strong. After he effortlessly carried a massive oak wardrobe up 3 flights of stairs by himself, the customer complained. He told the company that the delivery man's unsettling display of solo strength made him and his son, who were watching, feel inadequate and emasculated. The company fired the employee to avoid a lawsuit, citing unapproved deviation from standard team lift procedures. 47. The weatherman for a local news station was fired for being too accurate. After correctly predicting a week of non-stop rain, which led to the cancellation of a major town festival, the station was flooded with angry calls. The station manager fired him, not for being wrong, but for being right. His termination papers cited negative community impact due to consistently pessimistic but accurate forecasting. 48. A mall Santa was fired on Christmas Eve after a child's parent complained he was too authentic. The man, a jolly fellow with a real white beard and a deep belly laugh, was apparently so convincing that the child had a full-blown existential crisis in the car, realizing this Santa was far superior to the dad-in-a-costume Santa he was expecting. The complaint? Causing philosophical distress in a minor. 49. A professional dog walker was let go from her agency after a client complained their dog was too happy after its walks. The owner claimed the dog would get so excited to see the walker that it stopped showing the same level of enthusiasm for him. He accused her of alienation of canine affection. The agency, fearing the loss of a wealthy client, terminated her for exceeding the client's mandated pet and handler bonding parameters. 50. An archaeologist on a university-funded dig was fired for making a discovery that was too important. He unearthed a fossil that completely contradicted his department head's life's work and famous theory. Instead of celebrating the monumental find, the enraged department head had him removed from the project and his contract terminated, citing a breach of academic continuity. He was fired for rewriting history correctly. 51. A golf caddy was fired for giving advice that was too good. He suggested a club to a high-powered CEO that resulted in a perfect shot, but it was a different club than the CEO was planning to use. The executive was so infuriated that he had been proven wrong that he complained to the club manager. The caddy was fired for unsolicited strategic optimization that undermined player autonomy. 52. A tech support agent for a major internet provider was fired for solving a problem on the first try. A customer with a chronic internet issue, used to spending hours on the phone, was suspicious when the new agent fixed it in 5 minutes. He complained that the solution was too simple and that previous agents must have been scamming him, demanding the new guy be fired for exposing the company's incompetence. And they did it. 53. A tailor was fired after a client complained his custom-made suit fit too perfectly. The man claimed the suit was so exquisitely tailored to his physique that it made all of his other, off-the-rack clothes feel horrible in comparison, forcing him into a state of wardrobe-induced despair. The luxury department store fired the master tailor for setting an unsustainable standard of sartorial excellence. 54. A lifeguard at a resort pool was fired for being too vigilant. A guest complained that the guard's constant scanning of the pool was unsettling and made him feel overly scrutinized while he was trying to relax. The hotel manager, prioritizing the guest's vacation vibe over safety, fired the lifeguard for creating a visually disruptive poolside atmosphere. His crime was literally watching out for people who might be drowning. 55. A professional gift wrapper during the holidays was fired for her beautiful work. A customer complained that her wrapping was so immaculate, with perfectly folded corners and elaborate bows, that her family was too intimidated to open their presents, thus ruining the spirit of Christmas. The store manager fired her for excessive presentation quality, leading to gift opening paralysis. 56. A handyman's reputation for being able to fix absolutely anything ironically led to his dismissal. He was called to a wealthy client's home to fix a squeaky door hinge. He fixed it in 30 seconds with a single drop of oil. The homeowner was furious, complaining that the $150 minimum service fee was outrageous for a 30-second job. The handyman was fired by his company for failing to adequately dramatize the complexity of the service provided. 57. You'd think being a spelling bee champion would be a great quality for a closed captioner, but it got one woman fired. A TV viewer who was hard of hearing filed a complaint that the captions on his favorite show were too perfect. He claimed he enjoyed finding the occasional typo, and her flawless transcription removed the interactive element of spotting on-screen errors. The network let her go for diminishing viewer engagement through excessive accuracy. 58. A baker, famous for his sourdough bread that required a 48-hour fermentation process, was fired for his dedication. A new manager, focused on maximizing output, demanded he switch to a quick-rise yeast recipe that took only 1 hour. The baker refused, arguing it would destroy the bread's quality. He was terminated for aversion to process modernization and workflow acceleration. His crime was refusing to make bad bread. 59. The simple act of remembering a customer's name got a coffee shop manager fired. A new customer, a tech CEO paranoid about data privacy, was horrified when the manager remembered his name and usual order on his second visit. He complained to corporate, accusing the shop of implementing an unauthorized facial recognition and data retention program. The manager was fired for having a good memory. 60. A children's party clown was fired for being too good at making balloon animals. One of the kids at a birthday party asked for a simple balloon dog. The clown, a true artist, instead created a stunningly complex multi-balloon sculpture of a poodle. The birthday boy was so mesmerized by it that he ignored all his actual presents, leading his parents to complain. The clown was fired for upstaging the primary celebratory objects. 61. A botanist at a city garden was fired for her green thumb. A city official complained that the plants in her section were growing too vigorously, requiring more frequent trimming than the plants in other sections, which was impacting the budget. She was terminated for fostering unsustainable levels of vegetative growth. She was literally fired because the plants she cared for were too healthy. 62. A ski instructor was fired after a client complained he was too good at building confidence. The beginner skier, after a single lesson, felt so empowered by the instructor's expert teaching that he tried a black diamond trail, fell, and blamed the instructor. The resort fired the instructor, citing negligent over-empowerment of an unskilled client, which is the most backward way of punishing someone for being an amazing teacher. 63. A history professor at a community college was let go after a student complained his lectures were too interesting. The student claimed the professor's stories were so engaging and vivid that she couldn't stop thinking about them, which distracted her from her other, more boring classes. The dean, facing pressure to improve pass rates in other subjects, dismissed the professor for monopolizing student cognitive resources. 64. His only job was to be an emergency backup, and he was fired for being too prepared. A power plant had a backup generator operator who ran daily checks and kept the machine in pristine condition. When the company was audited, they fired him, claiming his role was redundant because the generator was so reliable it never needed repairs. His meticulous maintenance was cited as the reason his job was non-essential. 65. A janitor at a high-tech laboratory was fired for being too observant. One night, he noticed a complex equation on a whiteboard had a tiny error in it, a mistake from his old college physics classes. He corrected it with a dry erase marker. The lead scientist was so profoundly embarrassed that he had been corrected by the janitor that he had him fired for unauthorized manipulation of scientific data. 66. A librarian was fired for fulfilling a book request too quickly. A patron put in a request for a rare, out-of-print book. The librarian, an expert in interlibrary loans, managed to track it down and have it delivered in just 24 hours. The patron complained that the speed of the delivery ruined the thrill of the hunt. The library fired her for diminishing the patron's sense of literary discovery. 67. A valet's career ended because his running was described as unsettlingly graceful. A hotel guest complained that the valet ran to retrieve his car with the elegance of a trained dancer, which he found performative and distracting. The hotel manager, who had a bizarre fixation on appearances, agreed. The valet was terminated for displaying a non-standard and overly athletic retrieval posture. 68. A city planner was fired for designing a park that was too popular. He designed a beautiful public space with fountains and gardens that became an overnight sensation, drawing huge crowds. Nearby residents then complained about the traffic and noise. The city council, instead of celebrating the success, fired the planner for a failure to project the negative consequences of a successful public works project. 69. A factory worker on an assembly line was fired for being too happy. He was known for humming and smiling while he worked, which his supervisor claimed was unsettling. A consultant was brought in who determined the man's cheerful demeanor was a potential indicator of a lack of focus on his repetitive task. He was terminated for displaying an emotional state inconsistent with the monotonous nature of his assigned duties. So, it seems the fastest way to get fired is to be too good, too efficient, or just too logical for your own good. We've seen it 69 times. But all these stories leave one giant question unanswered. Who is the real villain here? Is it the customer with the absolutely insane complaint? Or is it the manager who lacks the backbone to say no and fires a good employee instead? Let the debate begin in the comments. If you enjoyed this madness, hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you next time.